You think about how it was I don't know, 100 years, 150 years ago or whatever, right? But families would sit around in there, in the parlor, in the living room, and, somebody would read, they'd sew and work on their arts, their crafts, and
or maybe
all these
just
kind of do all these
quilting.
productive things, people practice their instruments. I think of it as we used to be creators of entertainment. Like when you'd have
Right.
company over or something, and then it'd be like, all right, well, so and so will play the piano or we'll sing, or we used to create, and now we're consumers. You come over, hey, what should we watch? Let's put something on. Let's watch a movie. Let's do something. We're just consumers. And yeah. Anyways, that's my rant.
So it used to say to acknowledge our unity as individuals, and I changed that to our sovereignty as individuals. And it used to be but now it's to explore the American. So for the time being, we will focus on the blueprint, which is what we've been doing. And it says this is a group to practice deliberative dialogue and nonviolent communication. And then there's the description that we've been through many times. And here's studying the blueprint for a better America, what we can do now. And Brian's written, the purpose of the American Union is to deliver legislative solutions to many of the problems and issues that people want to see addressed through a duty-based framework inspired by the preamble of the Constitution. The blueprint is for a better America. It's a legislative package with dozens of popular policies. The group will, 1, listen for problems that people want to see addressed in America. 2, look to see if the blueprint helps advance solutions for them. And 3, examine other policies that are within the legislation and the problems they address. 4, recognize that not all issues are important to all people, but that we are stronger when we support each other. I think that's important. Number 5, listen for paramount objections where individuals have deal breakers inside the blueprint and would prefer politics as usual. 6, build consensus that as a whole, this legislation build a better America by ending poverty, ending mass incarceration, and endless wars, and that the time to act is now, 2022 midnight. All right. So let's go ahead and introduce ourselves just to get in the flow of that we're all here. And I'll start. I'm TC. I'm a retired carpenter in Southern California. My passion is therapy and writing, video, and pontificating on the events of the world. I see you sitting there, Brian, smiling. So go.
Yeah, my name is Brian. I'm in Fayetteville, North Carolina, and my passion is trying to organize voters to end poverty, end mass incarceration, and end the endless wars.
Susan, you're next.
I'm Susan, and I'm in San Diego. And my passion is trying to preserve biodiversity in any way that we can. And I volunteer at the zoo and do other things that help with to that means. I also am a member of California Native Plant Society. And I think achieving those also helps with the health of the human population as well, because we need our biodiversity.
Right on, Eddie.
I'm Eddie. I'm in Shanghai, and one of my passions is creating a universal basic income through a community digital token, which people can use to buy and sell, mutual aid, and help each other with things that they need.
Chihuahua.
I'm Chiwa, and I live in Oceanside, California, a suburb of San Diego, and sort of. And I think, you know, I have a lot of things I'm passionate about, but I think underlying all of it is my passion for helping people express from the heart and enjoy life more. And everything else sort of springs out of that. And I make my living editing and formatting books for people who want to publish, and helping them self-publish their books and get the word out. And I am very much passionate about the environment and climate, doing what we can to mitigate the effects of climate change. And and I'm writing kids' books, and I love it. And they're all about living a greener life, and they're fun.
Thank you, Chihuahua. That was wonderful. We're all here, and round 2 is old business. Is there anyone here who can remember last week?
Yes. I have some thoughts.
Okay, go for it.
So last week, Susan, we talked about how we could get more third parties interested in joining the American Union and benefiting from it and benefiting everybody. And so I had 2 thoughts on that. One is that if you really want to get third parties, they're just like all the rest of us. They're interested in what they're interested in. And that's what we discussed last week. They don't seem to want to be, you know, anything else is not really on the table for them. So I think if we're going to bring third parties into this, then we need to look at broadening out the scope of the points that the American Union wants to focus on, beyond those 3, perhaps. And or another way to approach that would be to approach groups that are not necessarily third political parties, but that are interested in, that are focused on ending mass incarceration and ending poverty and minimizing the military, and get them to join us and to get their people behind this. You know, that way we just keep the 3 points that we have. But I think either of those approaches would be more likely to bring us people with clout than other things that we talked about. Pardon?
Yeah, I'd love to respond to that. But when you say the other things that we talked about, could you remind me what those were?
Let's see. We talked about
the other strategies.
Well,
I
mostly talked about the difficulties of getting. I think it's what I remember anyway, of getting third parties to respond, because they didn't seem to be, you know, they didn't feel the pull.
Yeah. So yes, you're absolutely right, Chihuahua. You identified a great strategy. Unfortunately, as we've tried reaching out to these various groups, it's really hard to get a response and get people interested. You know, all these 50 policies in this legislative package, you know, a lot of them are pretty like specialized. And you'd think, you know, if you're passionate about reforming qualified immunity, that, you know, people would be excited about, hey, here's an opportunity to get what I want. And yet it doesn't, like, people don't respond. So Leilani has been doing a lot of outreach to criminal justice organizations for the last month or more, specifically trying to get them on board for all of the reasons that you identified. And response has been very, very disappointing. So that being said, we've had some more success trying to reach out to libertarians but yeah, so Chihuahua, yes, you're absolutely right. People should want to work together to get the things that they want done, but for whatever reason, it's been very problematic to persuade them that working together is a practical solution.
Well, yeah, I mean, but unless what they want are those 3 points, we're not really showing, there's nothing to show them as to how we're helping them accomplish what they want to do.
Yeah, you're correct. Like, so as maybe you're thinking of like the Green Party, right? Which would, I would support, I think, all of those 3 points, but then would like to see a 4th or 5th and so on. Same with the Poor People's Campaign.
But then that's not their major concern, I think. Their major concern, right, is the environment.
Yeah, which is very, very understandable and yeah. But I think as we talked about last week, some
Are
of the
you
other,
open to expanding the points?
the short answer is that at this, for 2022, it's not really realistic. There's not, the points are already out there and offered to people. And so it sort of would be bait and switch to say, oh, we're changing this at this point.
Changing it, but expanding our focus.
Okay.
Okay, I just thought I would bring that up. That either that or target groups that are already focused on those 3 points, which are not
And
necessarily third parties, but I'm sure there are other groups out there that are making noise about those points.
Yeah, the Poor People's Campaign, which is one of
Yeah,
the reasons
that's
why
one,
I'm here in North Carolina. Because yeah, they cover those and then they,
And
yeah, sorry, I'll stop. I'll shut up
Yeah.
now.
Oh, thank you. I just wanted to mention the fact that, I'm in several groups where there are a lot of people that express interest that maybe they want to participate, and who knows, but when it actually comes to attending the meetings or coming and doing, very few of them show up. So it's not just with this, it's, it's kind of a trend.
okay, I agree with that. I've been noticing, I've been having my own trying to get groups started and watching other groups that I sit in on, and it's a big deal to get 5 or 6 people in the room at the same time. And
Yeah,
I'd like to say, as far as the 3 points, I like the fact that it's clean and clear, and because the blueprint itself is so, inclusive and so big, that the having the 3 points. But I hear what you're saying, Chihuahua, that I think I hear what you're saying is, and the environment.
well, I'm definitely saying, and the environment. Up to me, that's number 1 for sure. But that is as we've already discussed, it's pretty systemic. But yeah. So my point is just how to get more people to respond, and more groups, not individuals to come to meetings, although that's important too, and it's hard, but get more groups to put the word out and bring their members in.
So, Chihuahua, would you say it would be in poverty, in mass incarceration, in the endless wars, and something like in the attack on the environment, or
Yeah,
in the planetary destruction, or I don't know, but
yeah, something like that.
yeah. But and so as we go forward, we can slip that in, maybe, Brian, or something. We can work on that, maybe, Brian. I don't know. But I hear what
Yeah.
you're saying. To change it now would look kind of like we don't have our shit together. Like
It
we
might
do.
look like we're being responsive.
Oh,
Yeah. And responsible.
so Brian, you want to finish off that topic?
I get if there's, I'm not sure what else I can add to it, but yeah, again, having these 3 points, again, when you run for office, you try and have 3 things, 3 points that you hammer again and again. 3 is a good natural number. And again, having these correspond to Martin Luther King's triple evils, again,
Yeah.
helps reinforce the message. And so that's, again, and we've got thousands and thousands of signs that say end
Oh,
poverty, end mass
okay.
incarceration, and end the endless wars.
Oh,
But
it's only
there,
5,000.
Tiwa, you're right. I mean, there's so much more than 50 problems in this country.
Oh, yeah, there are. But I'm
and-
just saying, and I wasn't necessarily saying climate change, and that's important to me. But I'm just saying, if you want to get more groups in, you got to look at what they want. What they want, not what necessarily is in the blueprint at this point.
They wanted to get better without having to do it. That's what I want.
Well, yeah, everybody wants everything to get better without having to change.
Yeah.
Yeah.
However, I'm getting changed whether I like it or not. So I think a lot of us are experiencing that. So I think that concludes round 2.
Okay.
You feeling okay, Sheila?
Yeah.
Thank you for adding that.
I just been thinking about this, and I thought I would just bring it up.
Oh, good. We had old business. That's great. I'm glad I put that in
Yeah, I was waiting for you to call for it.
there. All right, new business. Does anyone have a burning desire to share or clear before we start the dialogue?
I have a new business question or whatever that I'd like to just bounce off you guys and get your opinions. So as far as the American Union holding our own election to decide the endorsements, this campaign, that part of the campaign runs from August 1st through October through November. Starting at October 1st is publishing the revised blueprint and sending it to Congress, and then giving them a few weeks to offer amendments, offer things, and then going from there into a final offer in September, and then having to be available to everyone to see, read, discuss, analyze for 3 weeks before October 15th, and then giving all the candidates the opportunity to weigh in to decide, is this better than the status quo, or would you turn the whole thing down and just take our chances with politics as usual? And so this is like a phrasing question that I'd like your opinion on. So from August 1st until election day, November 8th, is 100 days. And so so you could say from August 1st, it's 99 days till election day, or you could call it a 99-day campaign, or a 100-day campaign, or a 99-day election cycle, or 100-day election cycle. And which of those, 99 or 100, which of those sounds more like we have 99 days to change the politics, or 100 days? I don't know. What do you guys think? Does that question make any sense?
Yes, it makes sense. I like 100, but then it's 99 bottles of beer on the wall. We might make a song. 99 days till we. Anyway, I'm in a good mood. I'm sorry. Hi, Nissan.
Hey, buddy, how you doing?
Hey, Nissan.
I'm glad you showed up. Everybody was waiting for you.
Yeah, I had to go talk to a lawyer real quick.
So we've checked in. We did an old business about maybe what it would look like to expand the 3 points from Dr. Martin Luther King's 3 points to add some, and we decided to work on that later, or to add it later, because all the signs are made up. Everything's good to go for this round. And so we're now to new business. If you have any, or did you have any old business, Dean?
No, I don't think so.
Okay,
I think
and
everything was
so
covered last time.
we're to, and everybody knows Nissan, and you know everybody.
Yep.
So new business, does anyone have a burning desire to share or clear before we start the dialogue? And Brian just brought up the time from August 1st until what did we do, Brian? We vote or
Well,
what?
yeah, election day is November 8th. And so it's from August 1st, it's 99 days until election day. But if you count August 1st as well, then it's 100 days. If you count August 1st and Tuesday, November 8th, it's 100 days. And so which sounds better for marketing? A 99-day election campaign or a 100-day campaign?
I guess 100. I like even numbers.
Well, but
One-
99 is repeating numbers, and that's good too. So I don't know.
For 99, I could go either way, but I like 99. Chihuahua?
I like 100 also.
I like
Chihuahua?
100.
Oh,
100. I say 100.
Eddie says 100. So now I don't know. I think we're a split house.
She was muted.
I'll go with 100.
Thank
Well,
you.
I'm
100
lost.
days.
Okay, so now it's pretty clear. It's 100, Brian. I'm hearing
100 days to change the world.
100 days.
All right, cool. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Can you expand a little bit on what happened? What is August 1st? What do we do on August 1st? That's when we send out letters to the candidates, or
Yeah, well, yeah, letters, press release, all that good stuff, and say, all right, here's our opening offer for Congress. Put this on the president's desk and you guys get our votes. Republicans, Democrats, we don't care. Just get it done. But again, we're not professional legislators, bill drafters. And so while it's a good faith offer, it is certainly imperfect. So through Labor Day, which is September 5th, we'll give Congress the opportunity to, if they want, they can hold hearings, they can do whatever they want, but they can submit, make publicly available proposed amendments and things to the blueprint. And then we'll hold hearings and we'll combine them and come up with one final offer by September 24th. And then that final offer, it's a take it or leave it offer for all the candidates, all the people, whether we like it or we're gonna pass. And so then everybody can look at it for 3 weeks, and then October 15th is the day for everyone to decide in or out. And hopefully, if we have created enough moral pressure on Congress, they will yield and they will put it on the president's desk in the next couple weeks before the election. And if they refuse, then their challengers can earn our endorsement. And so the endorsement process would finish by the end of October. And then election day is the 100th day, November 8th.
now you've got that all written in a document I've seen before.
Yeah, I have an article that sort of explains that, but yeah, it needs to be polished a little bit more.
Anyone else? I've gotten lost where we're at new.
I'll go. I mean,
Esau.
I've been trying very hard to get the left coalesced around common issue. This Brian's cause, best cause I see would be great. We get the left to get surrounded around that, but it's been an incredible challenge. Recently there was a recent article in the Onion that showed the dysfunctionality of the left. It was a leftist group they tried to infiltrate, but it was so disorganized they couldn't infiltrate it. It's gotten to the point where the left, I literally have seen the left disenfranchise themselves by arguing with each other, not based on any conflict in value or ideals, but conflict in words and perceptions. So that's a fight I was not expecting to run into, but now I find myself face deep into it. This is why I feel like intelligence agency is needed. One of the main works is to get a group of people dedicated to deprogram and de-radicalize certain people, to de-radicalize people, just so we get them to, you know, communicate with each other, because we've been we've been split so far so far apart with our leadership that we're just doing it to ourselves now. It's like the left literally cannibalizes its own leadership. They don't need no outside help to do it. So
I agree, Nissan. And I've been watching some videos of Chris Hedges and because Sean was, there's a lady in Seattle on the city council that got the $15 an hour wage started, and they're saying the same thing, Nissan. The left is each their own, and we can't get past our own agenda to even start to consider other agendas. And so for your counterintelligence, I think that Chris Hedges is pretty sharp on what the right is up to. I mean, it's like it's as clear as anything I've heard anybody say so far about being conscious of what the right is doing and how we're not gathering our strength. I yield.
I just like to say I agree with you, Nissan. And so part of the blueprint strategy is to end debate and essentially call the question. You know, and say, look, here's the proposal, up or down, and the time for discussion is over, with the hope that there's enough rational people on the left that say, yes, better to have this than nothing. That's the hope and goal.
well, I wish I had better news on outcome so far, but it hasn't. The preliminary results has not been pretty. Hopefully things will change later as we get further along in the process, but so far I've not been optimistic about this.
Yeah.
Well, Nissan, you're doing an excellent job. You're a good spokesman for the blueprint. You know it well as anybody I know right now, among, you know, and I think you're a good, I think you bring a lot. So thanks. So that feeds back into the earlier question from last week of how do we get people involved, and I think we're all aware of that, and I'm sure our minds are working in that direction. So I want to move on to, unless is there anything else before we move on to round 4? Brian, share some possible letters to the candidates for feedback and support, so we can start to get some idea of what it is that the American Union wants to say to the candidates, and this is our opportunity to have some input. Are you prepared, Brian?
80% prepared.
Okay.
Hey, that's pretty good.
I'll
Can
pay
you
the
can you come back? Can you come back to me in 5 minutes?
Okay.
All
right. Round was going to be how to gamify American Union so candidates get on board. Does anybody know what gamify means?
Yeah.
Yes.
Sheila said yes first. She hit her button first.
It means, well, to me, it means like set up a system to where people receive rewards for the things that they do, and, you know, for specific things, like make a game out of it, so that there's, you know, that's what it means, is make a game out of it.
So you get a star every time you donate.
Yeah, stuff like that.
And then you count how many stars you have, and
that's one way to gamify. Yeah.
Okay, Nissan, you had an answer. Thank you, Chiwa.
Yeah, so just to elaborate what she says, gamifying is taking the ideal structures of games and gaming mechanisms and mechanics into everyday use to exploit the psychological reward centers of the brain in order to create positive feedback loops to continue to get you to motivate you to do a certain task that you find that you really want to do.
So do we want to talk about, I mentioned that we could gamify, we could give out acknowledgement for participation as far as like a donation, or maybe if you write a blog, or if you get on Twitter and just things that you do to promote the ongoingness. But then that's another thing to do. And we could do it instead of waiting for Brian. Brian's over. Brian's got lots of stuff to do. And any more ideas? But anybody want to address this right now? How to gamify the American Union?
I think it should be pointed out that the nature of games. I think that the nature of games is that they have a moderate level of unpredictability to them. So about 40 years ago, 50 years ago, psychology went through an era where they tried to become more scientific, and they reduced everything to input output, and they reduced everything to reward and punishment incentives. And then later on they had an experiment which sort of showed that this is not really how brains really work. Where they had an experiment with a puzzle box, and they had monkeys do the puzzle box, and they found that between two groups, where one group was rewarded for doing the puzzle box and one group was not rewarded for doing the puzzle box, the group that was rewarded actually worked on the puzzle box less. They solved it more slowly. It was more, it worked better. The monkeys worked harder on the puzzle box if there was no reward than if there was a reward. And I think what it points to is that they're, animals and human beings have a drive, which starts with curiosity and continues with play. And the purpose of the drive is to learn to master an uncertain environment. And so it's rewarding when animals or humans, start with something which they're not certain about, and they play with it, and they experiment with it, they play with it, and then eventually they figure out how to get certain results in a more predictable fashion, such as sort of starting off with ball games, or any type of game. You start off and you're not very good at it, and the more you play, the better you get at it. And there's a certain level of challenge. If the game is too simple and you know exactly what's going to happen every time, then it's not a game. It's not fun. People will hate it and they will not engage with that. But people will engage with stuff that is uncertain and challenging.
Well, getting people to sign up in the union is uncertain and challenging for sure.
Yeah. I think that we have to make it sort of somehow a little bit easier. So that maybe the challenge on that one is more difficult than a lot of people will accept.
Well,
People have trouble also when it's too difficult.
You would get a star every time you get somebody to sign up or something. You would be. I think acknowledgement is what I'm talking about, but I don't know what the reward would be other than that.
Well, we could definitely make this easier, like through an app, maybe like an Android app for the American Union, and some of the what we sports center doesn't have to be something, things just be something like flashy, like some noises or things or something. That's what casinos use to draw in people and keep them addicted. Is the little bells and whistles that come along to hitting a jackpot or something. There are definitely there's definitely a lot of visual cues and and audio cues that need to be in place with some games. That's how we form positive memories. And then rewards could be something simple as something as simple as cosmetic rewards, maybe even digital rewards.
So do you think there's something off the shelf that we could use, an app that we could adapt to making us?
I wouldn't say there's an app for that, but there's a lot of frameworks out there that's easy to make apps.
Oh, frameworks. Okay, okay, I get it. The scaffolding that you would build off of.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty easy to make an Android app now.
I just
That-
Googled gamification apps and I see that there are gamification apps for education and for teachers, which seems like the same thing. That's all that came up.
You did that just now?
Yeah.
Maybe
I
we should do
love-
gamification for politics.
You know, I really appreciate this question because I have been thinking about gamifying my thing for kids to get them to take action. And the point Eddie made gives me pause there.
So, that's something we could talk about as a group activity to work on, or we could make like next week or something. We could work on making up a gamification or something, and maybe Nissan could lead us in that. Seeing as how he seems to know. He seems to know. Well, Chiwa, you'll be there too. So
Well, I took a gamification course like 15 years ago. So, you know, I don't consider me any kind of expert. But what about what Eddie was saying? Eddie, were you saying in the upshot that maybe it is counterproductive?
I think gamification is huge, but you have to do it the right way. I think most gamification efforts they see it in too simple a manner. They think that the point of a game is rewards, and it's not the rewards that are actually the point. Like it looks like the rewards are the point, but I think the point is more something like the thrill. It's sort of like with the gambling, and there's you win sometimes, you lose sometimes, and people are just
30 seconds of fun.
obsessed with winning.
So it's sort of the
Even when
uncertainty that is
mathematically
the
it's a slot
reward.
machine. Yeah,
Right.
yeah, it's
Did
the
you
uncertainty
say,
which drives people to
intermittent?
try to master it.
Hey, we have idea this 30 seconds of fun, where you have like a small loop that is in chunks of 30 seconds that are really fun. So you want to break it up like that. So it's not always continuously fun, but you're just looking for the little moments.
Right. We want to get that dopamine movement. That's what we want.
Yeah.
Now I know I get a reward when I get a like, or when I connect with somebody. I get big rewards when I connect with people. My serotonin and dopamine goes way up. In a real connection where I feel like I'm bonded.
I was out putting up yard signs this weekend in North Carolina. And so I was driving through and I was stopped at a left turn arrow. And so I get out of my car and I'm putting up a sign in the median, and this guy behind me honks. And I look and the light's still red, and I look at him and he's like, "Hey," he's like, "Yeah." You're reading the sign that says end poverty, end mass incarceration, and end the endless wars. So yeah, so I got my nice little dopamine hit of like, all right, yes, people want to solve these problems and they're excited about that there could be a way to do it.
Yeah, I mean, I would like to get a hit every time somebody signs up, to be that, like, yay, another one, and be excited about our growth.
Consensus building. Maybe it's like a
Say
game of
what?
consensus building. I'm thinking maybe it's like a game of consensus building, and maybe
What?
one of the objectives is to consensus building,
Oh,
like the game of politics on an app. Like, what would it look like? I don't know. Like maybe one of the objectives is like getting people signed on, And then another objective is like somebody like checks the box to say, you know, say you're Chihuahua and you want people to, um, you know, be aware of the environment more. And if you get, you know, maybe one of the objectives is to get someone to check onto that cause. Like maybe people have a limited, I don't know. I'm just thinking about
Well,
what
I'm
the
really
rules,
excited
what the
about
gameplay
this.
could be.
I probably know the least about it and most excited right now because I don't know what I'm doing, but it's always more fun when you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah,
Well, not always. I mean, it's
I don't think so.
yeah. All right. Well, anyway,
Yeah,
I speak with a forked tongue.
I know.
Yeah. It's my bipolar. All
People
right, where
could,
are we?
yeah.
We were gamifying, and so do we want to check in and get an app or something and start building it, or? I mean, I don't know.
What is the, specifically, what would be the purpose?
So the reason I'd asked TC about gamification kind of things and strategizing along those lines is for two parts. One is reaching out to the individual candidates, and that's what this letter is, of gamifying the candidates. So you put pressure on people. It's sort of like the prisoner's dilemma. You know, the prisoner's dilemma is where you arrest two thieves and you keep them in separate cells, and you're like, look, if you confess and testify against the other guy, you'll only get 6 months. But if the other guy confesses and blames it on you, you're going to get 5 years. And so each person's like, well, I'll be better off if I just admit I did it. Even though if you both kept your mouth shut, then you both people would get away scot-free. And so that's the prisoner's dilemma, where if you did nothing, you know, there's a better outcome, but it's in your own best interest to cut a deal. And so trying to apply put that same pressure on the challengers and the incumbents in each district, where if the two parties said, screw you guys, we are never, ever, ever going to hold a vote on your crowdsourced legislative package. You guys keep yourself out. We're in charge of legislation. You can't have nothing to do with it. Then then what could you do? But when one of them starts to break and is like, yeah, it's in my best interest to go along with your crowdsourced legislation, then that creates pressure for the other side to do the same thing. And so that's the gamification part that I'm trying to bring to this, is where you encourage them to take sides against each other in our favor, instead of standing against us, disrupting the duopoly. Does that make any sense? So more specifically, the way this is set up is that October 15th is the day that challengers and incumbents compete for the endorsement. It is a national day of fasting that you can participate and pledge your commitment to supporting this by participating in the fast, or by taking a selfie at your polling place as a way to commit yourself to voting together to solve these problems. And so then the challenger and the incumbent on both have the opportunity on social media to do the same thing and say, yes, we want to be part of this group and we want to get this group's block of votes. And so the strategy is the challenger has to act first. And if they do, then the incumbent has an incentive to jump in and try and steal those votes back from the challenger. But the pressure on the challenger is that if they take up these terms and say, incumbent, we want you to end poverty, end mass incarceration, end the endless wars, and the incumbent actually does, then the challenger gets what they want, and so they're expected to step aside for 2022. So that's the gamification strategy for candidates. And then there's a larger one for how do we gamify this for Congress as a whole? If we can say for sure that we control a half a dozen US Senate seats, and a dozen House seats and control the balance of power, how do we use that leverage against the major parties in Congress to get them on board with trying to capture as many? How do we use that leverage and persuade them to put this on the president's desk? So you could do different things, like saying, all right, whichever party has the most votes in favor of this legislation will get, all of these seats, or something like that. I don't know. This is the gamification part where I thought Nissan, you could help strategize how to put the most pressure on the party as a whole by holding these seats hostage.
Well,
I'm excited about this. What do you got, Nissan?
I don't think I have anything at this very moment, but I'm sure I could come up with a few things. It's gonna take me a little while to get this thing
Yeah.
going.
Nissan, maybe we could follow up later this week or something, and
Sounds great.
yeah.
Let me know what time you got available, and we'll hash some of it out.
Or we could do a Google Doc or something where we all could put our ideas in there.
That's
and
also a
see
wonderful
how
idea.
They mesh up.
I don't have permission for the agenda.
I'll be more conscious of that. Okay. Well, that's exciting. Yay. I feel like we got something done. My dopamine's rushing.
Well, actually, I have to go to another meeting
All
for
right.
tech. So good night, everyone,
Huh?
and I hope to speak to you
Good
soon. Brian.
night.
Nissan,
Good night.
All right. Good night, Nissan.
we get to work together this week. Good. All right. Well, Brian, it's as long as I can hold them all. I'm gonna have to, or we're out of time, really. Did you have anything, Brian, before we go? 6 o'clock.
Yeah, I mean, I got a one-page letter that kind of lays this out for the Challenger. That I'm happy to share and get feedback on the messaging.
Anybody have any objection to us taking a few more minutes to hear what he had, at least what he wrote, if we don't get into a long discussion about it? But I'd like to do it myself. I'm not tired. I'm excited.
Let's go.
Go ahead.
Yeah, can I
Oh, yay.
okay. So these will be broken out. They'll be tweaked slightly to, depending on whether you're writing to a Republican or a Democrat, challenger or an incumbent or whatever. Again, to make it more relevant for them. But now that the primaries are over in some of our target states, this is what I've been putting together. Yeah, and anybody who's got any suggestions or feedback or anything, feel free to jump in at the end of a paragraph or something and
Okay.
suggest tweaks if you want. So congratulations on winning your primary. I believe that if elected, you would fight tirelessly to improve the lives of your constituents. But what if you could win a major victory and transform our nation without fighting? I'm writing on behalf of a national organization of swing voters, people willing to vote for either a Republican or Democrat, to discuss a potential endorsement of your campaign. The American Union is mobilizing people across the country who are deeply frustrated with the two-party system and ready to collectively bargain with our votes to restore America's place in the world as a functional democracy. Here's how this political innovation works. On October 15th, the American Union is holding a national auction for our block of votes. Candidates of any party can bid on them by agreeing to support our crowdsourced legislative package, the Blueprint for a Better America, which will, 1, end poverty through universal basic income and a public option for health insurance, 2, end mass incarceration through police, prison, and prosecutorial reforms, and 3, end the endless wars by bringing some troops home and redirecting militarism towards peace. These interconnected issues were identified by Martin Luther King Jr. as the triple evils of poverty, racism, and militarism. The goal is to see this legislation land on the president's desk, and we will cast our votes together in order to advance that agenda. Accordingly, we're presenting this to you to ask for your help. Will you take up our demand that Congress end poverty, end mass incarceration, and end the endless wars? All right, so here's the gamification part. So to be clear, we are offering a preferred endorsement to sitting members of Congress if, and only if, they advance this legislation to the president by October 26th. As the challenger, you have an oversized voice to use against the incumbent, demanding that they act now, and if they refuse, promising to deliver these solutions for the people in your district. You can give hope to those who are losing faith in our democracy. If and only if you take up our demands by October 15th and the incumbent fails to meet them, you will be guaranteed our endorsement. Correspondingly, if you take up our demands and succeed in pressuring the incumbent to put our legislation on the president's desk, you're expected to put your campaign aside in 2022. By being willing to put the marginalized millions ahead of your campaign, you can help end poverty and mass incarceration and end the endless wars. You can bring America out of the pandemic stronger and de-escalate the midterms. Will you help us build a better America? Learn more about the details on our website, anamericanunion.com.
This is really good. I only wonder about the third paragraph up from the bottom.
Yeah,
The next one.
the one where you got to give up your,
Yeah, that one where you got to give up your candidacy.
You demand that they do it and they do it, then yeah, you got what you asked for.
Be guaranteed. If you take up our demands and succeed in pressuring the incumbent to put the legislation on the president's desk, you are expected to put your campaign aside. I would say, hell no.
So this is the gamification part, right? Is either you say, I don't want the endorsement no matter what, or you say, I want the endorsement and because I really want these things to happen, even if, it's not me. So yeah, so that's the gamification part. Would you rather lose? Would the challenger rather lose than take up these demands? Or would they rather take up these demands and get them met if that meant they lost?
Or what if I could, this is not me speaking, okay, but me, the congressperson or the incumbent rather. I'm not the incumbent, I'm sorry, the challenger. If I could win, if I could do this and win, that's a big win. If I could win without doing this, that's also a big win.
The challenger or the incumbent?
the
The
challenge.
challenger.
Yeah, it could be.
For me, the selfish person who only cares about my career, okay?
And so that's why this is a moral crusade. We're not asking for these things for ourselves, but we're asking you to solve these problems for us. We wrote it down exactly how we want you to solve these problems. And if you say, no, I don't care about the tens of millions in poverty. I don't care about the millions in jail. I don't care about these $800 billion that we're spending on defense. It's all fine with me. Well, then you have to come out and say that October 15th and say, nope, I do not support ending poverty, ending mass incarceration, and ending the endless wars.
But I don't have to do that. I can just ignore you now.
Well, so that's the point, though, is essentially this is a roll call vote for all the candidates for office. Either you say, yes, I will take this deal, or you say nothing, which is turning it down. And so that's everybody gets to be on the record as either taking it or not taking it. That's how holding our own election outside of the two-party system works, is there has to be some sort of metric to put them on the record and hold them accountable to.
What's
so
my
that-
consolation prize for being
Yeah.
the moral?
Yeah, they need a consolation prize.
What do I
Ending-
get for being moral?
You get to help end poverty, end mass incarceration, and end the endless wars. Like,
No, I want recognition and a seat in Congress.
then what you're doing is you're demonstrating that you're a selfish person who's putting
Yeah.
your own interests ahead of everyone else. And so
Yeah.
great, if you want to go on the record as being a selfish person 3 weeks before the midterm election, then great, you can do that.
Well, that's what we Republicans do.
And they very well might, but that's
Yes.
the goal is to have an essential block of voters that they're like, crap, if I take up these demands, I could win, so I better do it.
So I think TC asked a worthy question. What would be a consolation prize?
For what? For the incumbent, for the challenger?
For the challenger, yeah.
I
Just
mean-
knowing that I helped isn't enough.
Mr. President, where can I get a job?
Well, I guess
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess I don't see that is a consolation prize, because look, you on your in your wildest dreams, you could never hope to accomplish these things on your own. If you got elected, you could never hope to accomplish all these things in 2 years.
Yeah, but I'm a Republican. I don't want to end mass incarceration.
You do, because you believe in that you should forgive the sinners. That's what the Bible says.
Damn, you're good, Brian.
I think the biggest variable here is the numbers behind it. If there
Right,
are
I
3
was gonna
million
say
people
that.
behind this AU thing, then it'll work because
Yeah,
it's got clout. But
if it's big,
if
yeah,
it's not,
that
if
was,
it's not big enough, then it might not have a
it'll
chance.
be ignored. Yeah.
100,
Bye,
100% correct.
Susan.
I see.
Yeah, so we got to get big.
Bye, Susan. So that goes back then to this gamification part, right? Which is, all right, you're a Democrat running in Arkansas or something like that, where you know you're like destined to lose. And so here's an opportunity for you to take up these demands. Look, all
Yeah.
right, if the incumbent does this before the election, then great. I'll drop out and I'll lose, because you're probably going to lose anyway. But all of a
Okay,
sudden now
there you
you've got a national message that you can tie into. And you can say, look, I'm willing to put the good of the country ahead of myself. All I want is the incumbent to do this. And if he does, I'll step aside. And
And
so
so-
once you start having a few candidates willing to do this, then you change the dynamic. And then, so why aren't the other candidates? Why are the other candidates so selfish? Why aren't they willing to be like this Democrat from Arkansas? And so that's the goal of gamifying this and changing the dynamic in a way that their selfishness in trying to to win, they do. I don't care, like Chihuahua, we can fix these things. They can solve these problems, and I don't care if they do them for the wrong reasons. I want to see.
Yeah, I got it.
solved.
Yeah. But so the question is, I guess thinking about it, and there are probably more people like the Democrat from Arkansas than there are Republicans looking to unseat somebody. I don't know. I think Democrats are more likely, liberals are more likely to say yes to this. I don't know about Republicans.
Yeah, definitely. It is definitely a tougher sell. But the thing is for about politicians is, if it's the difference between winning or losing, they're pretty good at persuading themselves that winning is the correct thing to do, no matter what the principles involved are. So if a Republican sees that ending poverty, ending mass incarceration, ending the endless wars is the difference between winning and losing, they'll find a way to justify whatever it takes to win.
So we're back to, it depends on how much clout we have.
That's right. So I like this idea of changing, because, one of the issues, and I heard it said this week, that you're sat down and you're told that you will play the game or we will end your career. And a lot of people have been smeared, and Bernie Sanders said he didn't want to end up like Ralph Nader. He held back because of his fear of losing any hope of doing anything. And so to change that conversation to, you better do what we say or you have no hope, to move that conversation.
That's why I think that the app and the game,
Because
that the point of it should be to show that the people, that if you coordinate actions, that the people can control the politicians. Maybe the point, the app is where like people vote on like one thing that they will require the politician to do to get their vote. And then, right, so everybody votes on one consensus thing that the politician must do to get their vote. And then you send it to them, and maybe you start off with like local elections, and just try to get as many people as possible. And some of them might be silly suggestions, but whatever the most people agree with, and then you send that to the politician, and you see if you can make the politicians do something, anything, whatever they want.
Well, in this case, it's the fast.
It's what?
The fast, the monthly fast on the 15th is to say, all right, politician, demonstrate that it's not all about you,
Right.
that you're willing to support, put other people in front of it, put the larger, demonstrate that it's not all about you.
That's a big ask.
Does Mitch McConnell care to be seen as it's not all about him? I don't think he gives a damn.
Yeah, unfortunately, he's not up for re-election this time around.
I
either.
know, but he's not the only one like that. Well, I don't know. I think it's really a good question. We need to find a good gamification.
Yeah.
So I didn't really
Really-
understand the one that you said, Eddie. Get them to choose anything they want, not something in our agenda.
Yeah, well, it could be something in the agenda. It's up to, it's crowdsourced. It's up to the people, like whatever people like, anyone can suggest, create suggestions, and then everybody votes on the suggestions, and whatever filters to the top, like the most people said that this is what they want the politician to do before the election to get their vote, then you send that to the politician, whatever it is. And even if it's something silly, like you want the politician to jump into a 10-foot cake and record it and show everybody, it would at least show people that you can control the politicians as long as you coordinate. So that maybe the first one is like jump into a 10-foot cake, but the second one is like pass UDI, or put it in front of the legislature or on the president's desk, as Brian often says.
I'm not a fan of trying to get them to do something silly as a way of appealing to the lowest common denominator, because that's a lot of what is driving a lot of our political problems, is this appealing to the lowest common denominator. And if we want to fix our problems, we need to change direction, not go further. That's my position. I see, I hear where you're coming from, Eddie, of let's do something to show our control over them. But I feel like it should be something sincere and not stupid.
I agree.
Why don't we think about this?
I mean, Eddie, what does that say about me? If I'm like, hey, I don't care who wins this election as long as they're willing to jump in a cake. What does that say about me as a voter, as a responsible citizen? That I'm
Well,
willing to.
This is a hypothetical. I mean, the point is that people are the way they are, and there's not one of us in a room who is going to be able to change. Well, the thing is that there's not one of us in the room that can dictate and say what are the millions of voters going to want. I mean, it's up to them, but maybe the thing that you can do is to actually show very clearly that it is up to them, because right now it's not up to them because they can't coordinate, and that all you have to do is coordinate, and then you can accomplish anything that you want. And if the millions of voters, after they discover that they can coordinate and they can change the world, so it's a question like, what will they do? And I would actually say that they'll probably do the right thing. And if they can't do the right thing, even if they realize they have the power, then we're screwed, anyway. anyway you cut it.
Why don't we
I'm not
think about this
encouraging,
over the week?
jumping on cakes, but I'm saying that like one thing that people tend to have in common is humor. Humor brings people together, and humor sends things around. People will share things because it's funny, and sometimes like it will be funny. It's like political cartoons, and memes. Like you try to make it funny, but at the same time, sometimes you're making a point with the humor. And for some reason that's the way people work. There's I don't know, humor.
Oh,
And
I thought you were-
again, I'm not saying that it has to be jumping a cake. I'm saying it might be, and it's up to the people. It's not up to me to decide what the people vote on. It's up to the people to decide what they vote on. But that may, like, having silly options available, which the people themselves will decide if they want to put those up or not. that potentially could contribute to the numbers. You need numbers. If you don't have numbers, there's nothing to decide. We have no decision available if we don't
again,
have numbers.
I guess I don't see how that, what does that say about me as a voter? To say, yes, I'm willing to pool my votes, and then everybody's going to vote on what we want the politician to do in exchange for our votes, either jump in a cake, pass UBI, or some other completely different policy, right?
What, Brian, why are you asking that question? Like what
Be-
like
Because I don't have great faith in letting people, this is the Bodie McBoatface thing, right? This is,
yeah.
yeah. So if
Yeah.
you're like, hey, come up with something wacky and popular to try and get votes for it, I'm not persuaded that the most principled things are going to float to the top.
Like, I feel like you want people to be a certain way, and you're afraid that they are not a certain way. You want them to be serious and value driven, and you're afraid that they're not serious and value driven.
Well, I don't know about being afraid. But
Yeah,
Yeah.
I feel
agree
like
with
if you give them a
Brian,
path of least resistance,
Yeah.
again, pander to the lowest common denominator of doing something wacky and silly, that you will get that, you will create that.
one of the whole ideas for me is that we want to change the conversation, and we want to change the flow of the society from that frivolous is the word to move. But I felt as good as I felt about this tonight as I felt since we've been doing this. And I thought I heard Chiwa said we can talk about this more later, or
Yeah, if we take some time to think of it, we might come up with some good ideas.
Yeah. I don't know. I want to say, like, we, the four of us, we don't have a say in what millions and millions of people are like. We have no say. Like, they are the way they are. And the only hope of having some influence that we have is to like lead that energy, like, a little bit. You can have some influence, and it has to be really, really smart. It has to, and it's just, you have to use 4 ounces to divert 1,000 pounds, basically. And you can lead it towards the serious
meet them
things.
where they're at.
So I'm gonna slightly disagree. I hear what you're saying, Eddie, and I hear where you're coming from, but I'll slightly disagree with you. And you were talking a couple weeks ago about the guy, the social media guy, the guy who wrote an article about social media for the Atlantic. I forget his name. And talking about the way that the social media is structured encourages these bad behaviors, the retweeting and things like that, where things go viral and everybody just piles on in this kind of way. And so it's the structure that leads to that. And so if you're creating a structure where things like get the politicians to jump into a cake can float to the top, then I think we should create a better structure.
Well,
Probably something
it's-
better than jumping into a cake. Okay, that was off the top of his head.
Right.
Was it though, Eddie? I feel like this is
It
something
is-
that would make people laugh and would get a bunch of likes and views and whatever else, right? And that's why you're suggesting it.
Yeah, I mean, what I'm saying is that people are the way they are, and if you try to completely change them and say they should, if you try to censor them and say you're not allowed to do this, you're not allowed to do that, unless you have unless you're Kim Jong-un in North Korea, then maybe you can tell them what to do. If you're not, they're gonna do what they want to do, and the only influence you have is you can't dictate what you want them to do. They're going to do what they want to do.
Well, not
And-
dictate, but you can inspire them. And you can say,
You
look,
can
this is
inspire
what-
them.
You can inspire
Yeah.
them and say, remind them
Yeah.
that this is what the Constitution is about. These are the things that we're supposed to be doing. We as Americans are supposed to stick together. We can solve these problems. If we want to, we have the power. And all we have to do is be willing to work together to ignore the two-party system and ignore this lesser of two evils paradigm and instead come together around solutions. We can do it. Or we can try and get them
Yeah.
to jump in
I'm-
cake.
Well,
Yeah.
those they're not mutually exclusive. Like they're not mutually exclusive. They're you know, you definitely should do that. But you know, I mean, you look at what goes viral and what people share, and a lot of it is like really stupid, funny stuff. So,
Okay,
you know, I don't
Eddie,
know,
I
maybe
have
you
a question for you. Do you want them to come to our level, or do you want to drop to theirs?
Question of beginning where if you got a junior high school dance and the girls on one side and the boys on the other, you know, nobody dances until somebody goes over to get the other one. You got to go where they are to start with them is what I think is what Eddie's saying, and then move them to where you want them to be. Is that kind of it, Eddie?
Yeah, exactly. You got to go to where people are. You can't just say, you know, I'm in the best place and everybody needs to do as I'm doing, and that's the level that, you know, everybody should be. That's like nobody. That's not. I don't think that'll be super effective. Like people will be like, no, you know, I think on my level is the place you should be. Yeah, but when somebody says something funny, like people laugh.
I mean, I have found in my life that when I think it's obvious, people should be really excited about whatever it is that I think is really important. You know, it's just like I am not good at. I have not had much success at that, and you know, I think to woo them, you got to start with what I agree with Eddie. You got to start with them where they are. I'm not saying it should be lowest common denominator. I'm not saying it should be stupid, but somehow you got to find something that will grab their attention.
Yeah, and I'm not saying things should be a certain way. I think I'm saying that things are a certain way.
Yeah.
And if you want to make things to be the way they should be, you have to start off with where they are right now and like inch it towards where it should be. You know, you can't just sort of quantum leap it straight to utopia.
But the way that things are right now is in 469 federal races, people are going to pick the lesser of two evils and send these people off to Congress and hope it all works out. That's where we are at now. And that doesn't work. So
yeah, and I mean, I think that the thing that is like just ready to go, like it could change. It's like right there, is that you know, that again that people, that there's somehow this, like the people are not in control because the people don't realize that they are and could be in control. And if you just do that one thing and not even worry about what people are going to do when they realize they have control, and just, I actually trust that when you know, that they'll do the right thing. But if you just change that one thing, maybe that would make a huge difference, and maybe that is actually possible to do.
In fact, you could even tell them from the beginning that we're running an experiment here. And so we're going to start out by getting, you know, we believe that by cooperating, we can have a lot more impact than if we don't cooperate. And so let's just do a little experiment to see, and do maybe a silly experiment, all right? And once we see that we actually could get the result that we wanted, then say, okay, now let's apply that to what we really want to achieve.
you could try this in the Michigan governor's race. The Republicans have a primary for the governor's race in Michigan, and a bunch of their candidates just got kicked out because there was fraudulent petitioning going on. And so you got like a 5 or 6 way race, and you could do something stupid like, all right, we're going to endorse the candidate who says booga booga the most times on Twitter before the primary, and something like that. So a very low barrier for entry, and then try and get them to compete against each other to do it one more time than another.
Yeah, we could try it. And again,
I'm not going to try it, but I'm saying there's you were asking for a place
look,
to try it, and so I'm throwing that out there.
Right, but like what the thing is just to make an open platform. So somebody may end up like putting Booga Booga on there. It's not us putting Booga Booga on there. We're just making an open platform, and then whatever people put and whatever people like.
Flag, Eddie.
What was that?
Why don't we lead with the Confederate flag? There's a bunch of people that would respond to that.
We would actually consider banning that. That's the only thing we would ban. Booga Booga, we're not going to ban. Like if people like it, fine. But if they want to be like racist and crap, we are going to we're going to ban that.
I'm saying there's all kinds of people in the world, and do we want to invite the lowest, what's called the lowest common denominator? Do we want to start with the problem, or do we want to start with the solution?
We're not inviting the lowest common denominator. We're not inviting people to put the flag on. We're just inviting people to participate and put on there whatever they're going to put. And the Confederate flag, I would say most things like it's open season, like you can do whatever you want. But I would support banning the Confederate flag in particular. Like if that many gets attractive, we'll cut the cord on that.
I don't think we should start with that.
No, I was being
Gonna make a lot of enemies that way.
I was being a smart ass. I was talking about that you can draw anybody you want. I was just saying we want to pick out who we want to draw. That's all I'm saying. Who do we want to appeal?
It's fine. I mean, you can seed it with stuff that you think is good.
Now we could get on,
but it's open. Anybody can get on there.
I've seen people on TikTok that are making great political statements. So you can reach that group without being silly. You can be real. They like that, and it gets a lot of views if you just tell the truth. But I don't have the TikTok mentality because you got to be quick and you got to say your shit and get it done. But I've seen some really interesting people on there that, especially the younger ones, they're really into who you are and being the best of what you can be and raising yourself, taking yourself to a higher place. And I like that kind of energy. I shared one of those guys on the Discord. I'm sorry, Eddie.
Brian, when is the Michigan race?
I don't know. I don't know when the primary is.
Okay. I don't know what happened, but I changed it.
August 2nd. August 2nd is the primary. They disqualified 15 candidates for petitioning fraud.
So I like the gamification. Let's start there. And then let's get an app to kind of like what Nissan was, or also we'll get the framework and then we'll start building on that and then have this discussion of where it's not just throwing out ideas, where we're actually saying, well, we could do this, and then talk about and agree or disagree. I'm going to look for those apps. I get my computer to run again.
Is that at all in line with what you had in mind, Brian, when you suggested gamification?
Yeah. I'm sorry, I couldn't quite hear what TC was saying. There's some background noise coming through from Eddie.
I think that we should get an app and start the process of figuring out how we want to gamify, and at that point then have the discussion about whether we want to be humorous or whether we want to be and I think if we're going to be gamifying, yeah, we're going to lean more towards Eddie with the the more fun things. They don't have to be silly or ridiculous. They can be fun. And so I think that would make us all happy. And if we were doing something that people could enjoy and actually at the same time be leaning in our direction, whether they know it or not.
Well, I like fun. I always like fun, but I also see that our time frame here is short. August is coming up tomorrow, you know? And so I don't know that we really have time to do all that. And I also
see-
don't know that that's what Brian meant by gamification. I don't think so. I think that's sort of what I said, and that's sort of what Nissan said, but that's not what Brian had in mind.
What's the difference?
Brian can tell you better than me.
Yeah, I guess I'm not,
Okay,
the gamification was the idea is to encourage people to do the right thing. That was, I know, Chihuahua, you said you took a class, so you probably have a better definition, but that's sort of my definition of gamification of
Yeah,
tapping into people's, you know, competitive nature in order to steer them in a positive direction. And that's what I think of as when I think of gamification. And,
okay, so how would getting an app serve that?
I'm not sure that it would.
I'm not either. I
So,
think that was off in a different direction.
yeah, I agree, but Eddie had asked for like, where's the place that he could test out this theory? And I guess the Michigan governor's primary seemed like a place, because so many candidates got kicked off the ballot. It's like 49% of the electorate is undecided over who they're going to vote for. So maybe that's your opportunity to try and get them to jump in cakes or something in exchange for votes. I don't know. It's not something that I'd be interested in reading the results, but it's not something I'm gonna invest any time and energy in, I don't think.
TC, you don't seem like that excited either. And I want to say that the thing that excites me about this idea is that potentially it's doable. It would not be that difficult to create a platform nowadays where people can make a proposal, create an option, a suggestion, and vote on suggestions. Like that would be fairly easy to code up. And then it's just a matter of like inviting people to play with it, and whether or not they share it with their friends. And if they do share it with their friends, then you may end up with having something happen. Like it is doable. It's
And so
potentially-
how would that show
that's
that
that's
we have
exciting to me. Like
influence? How would that show
well,
that
because that the people have influence, because it would be a platform of coordination where the people came up with the options, the people voted on the options, and like at the end of the day, like the politician actually did what the people
okay.
together collectively asked the politician to do. And then you could potentially make a more complicated version. Maybe the next version after that would be the game of politics, where you could make it more like a deliberative democracy platform where people can propose like make policy proposals, and then the game is like, can you get people to sign on to your policy proposal?
I like that, but I don't see that that's doable in 2 months.
Yeah, the second one is not.
A month and a half.
But the first one is actually sort of doable. The first one, that's why I mean that's the second version. Like if the first version actually does something, then you can move towards the second version, which would take at least much longer, like at least a year probably or more.
Yeah, but
5
the
years,
election
who knows?
is in November.
right.
Sure.
I was looking up the gamification app, so I didn't hear what you were saying, Brian. So what do I do in your worldview of Gamify? What am I doing?
What do you do? You're you're contacting your incumbent and your challenger for House and Senate that are going to be on your November ballot, and you're like, here's the deal. I want you guys to compete to get my vote. And this is my metric, the blueprint for a better
Oh, I
America.
get it. The game is between the contestants. And I'm thinking of a game for the people to get the people on board.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, all right, yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the two things, two different
Yeah.
things that we were talking about. And
Yeah.
I don't, there's other ways to gamify that. One of the reasons that we set this up with the Action Network is so that, you know, you can have your own groups and links and things like that. And so TC, you can have your own newsletter subscription link. And then Eddie can have his own, and we can see which one of you guys can sign up the most people for the newsletter, and, you know, have a leaderboard or whatever else like that. Like if you wanted to gamify it that way, you could.
Where, when,
But
now?
So your game, the object of your game is to get people to be more, to do what they ought to do instead of what serves them politically.
yes, what serves them politically is keeping power, but the right thing is to return power to the people. So
That,
again,
that would be a game. Yeah. How do you do that? I don't know.
Where is the
well,
Action Network?
so Chiwa, that's part of this model of being willing,
What?
that, yeah, I was gonna say, so that's this model of being willing to reelect the incumbents regardless of party. So here's a way that they win by getting to stay in power for doing the right thing. Even if it's not in their long-term best interest, to acknowledge that we, the people, have power over the process, in their short-term interest to get themselves reelected. Yeah, so.
So back to what about how are Eddie and I work, we're measuring what we're doing for the union, right? And getting the acknowledgement. Is that correct? I mean, tell me about this Action Network, because I went there and I could barely make a email list.
That's why the American Union is set up through the Action Network, so that we have the national organization at the top, and then the child groups, either on the state level or on the around the major three planks, and then underneath, essentially, the grandchildren groups that can be, you know, state, not state chapters, but like a different chapter for each congressional district, or a sub issue under the Ending the Endless Wars. There's a subgroup for nuclear de-escalation. And so you can have these smaller groups, and then all that information and everything all trickles back up to the top, to support the national effort. Yeah, we can set up individuals and peoples with their own accounts. Again, if you decide you want to be an organizer, at the $25 a month pledge, and promoting the fast, and promoting the organization, you can get your own fundraising links where you can earn a commission on fundraising that you do for the PAC. 10%.
Why aren't we doing?
I feel like we've talked about it before, TC.
Well, but I wasn't open. I wasn't hearing it. I
Okay.
didn't. I mean, now I'm excited right now, and I'm open to it.
But yeah, so that's part of that's an aspect of gamification that's available to people. Go out and fundraise for the PAC, and, you know, get somebody to write $1 million check or whatever. 10% for you and 90% for the PAC of growing the American Union, and knowing that it's not going to any candidates.
Will you help me get my account set up there? Will you help me get my account set up there?
Yeah, we can. So the fasting is part of it, TC. You up for fasting once a month?
I can't have an account unless I fast.
This is to be an organizer in the American Union, it's a moral crusade to fix these problems. We got to leading by example.
Oh,
So, yeah.
well, yeah,
It does. I mean, everybody, but yeah, we gotta lead by example. Again, we're trying not to pander to the lowest common denominator, but to the highest ones, the uncommon people, the uncommon denominators, and inspire them to be better. And so, yeah,
TC, you only eat once a day, so just eat 30 minutes earlier one day and 30 minutes later the next day, and you'll have 24 hours. It's only an extra hour for you
That's
because you
not
only eat
the,
once a day anyways.
It's only what?
It's only an extra hour because TC only eats once a day,
right.
Oh,
is what I understand.
yeah, it's not a big deal for you, TC.
Brian,
Now,
would
I
that
eat 3 times a
fulfill
day.
his
Big
fast
deal for me.
requirement?
Would you
yeah,
say
it's whatever 24 hours, no food, water, only that whatever 24 hours works for you. That's mostly on the 15th. That's the fast. Individual, but it's an individual, it's around, works around your own schedule, but it's still a group activity. And it's that shared intention that manifests that manifests the moral pressure to address these problems.
okay, I'm looking at my resistance because there's a lot of it. It feels like you're saying, if I don't do what you want me to do, that I don't want to do, then I can't play.
I guess if you want to hear it that way, then you can hear it that way. But
What's another way to hear it?
is that these are the standards. This is how you lead by example. And the way to shift America's, like TC, you recorded our presentation the other night, right? Of how the larger American Union, this project, influences the political, the social, and the cultural problems in America. That how all these 3 things are tied together and how they can be addressed together, and that the fasting was an essential part of that. And so, yeah, so if you want to promote these solutions, then you've got to promote the solutions, and the fasting is part of the solution.
Well, I'm not so sure.
Yeah, who made that rule?
I don't see that the fasting is part of the solution.
I don't either. I
Well, so
don't
what-
understand. I understand the sacrifice idea of giving something up, but I mean, I don't think it should be a requirement to, well, maybe you're right. We'll keep it small and just a few people that are making the leading by example. And just like I got in copiosis and they said, you either go here or you can't be on the core group. And I said, okay, I'm not in the core group. I can't go to that level. I'm not willing to go to that place where I'm just in constant bliss and positively focused and not able to be who I am and be authentically when I have. Anyway, so the point is, it's like I'll support, but I'll be an organizer. I'm not qualified. I'm not a good example.
That's
Of fasting?
entirely, that's up to you.
Yeah.
I have faith. You could be a good example, TC.
I could do it, but it's just it wouldn't be heartfelt. So, it'd be just proving an obligation. And so I would rather just double my $25.
So
So now I know why
if
we
you-
never talked about it. We never got past fasting. So that's why.
And well,
Why?
and if you remember, TC, this is I'll say dumbed down from the standards that were set back in January with the Seeking 78 Satyagrahis article that we talked about afterwards. But you said that this wasn't your thing, which is okay. I love and appreciate you anyway. But
Yeah,
this is, again,
this is how we divide ourselves on the left.
well, so this ties back to Chihuahua, what you were saying about how do you get Republicans on board, right? And so one of the ways that you get Republicans on board is through this framing, through this narrative of this is a moral crusade, that it is wrong that we let so many children go to sleep in poverty. And it's wrong that we've locked up so many people, and it's wrong that we're spending all this money, and all these things are wrong. And so by giving this a moral narrative, that is a narrative that they are more, I'm oversimplifying, but you hear what I'm saying, that they're more comfortable with, that they can wrap their minds around that. And that to say that, look, we're not asking for UBI because we're greedy, but instead we are willing to sacrifice something because we want to solve these problems, that we want to make America better, that's a framework that they can be more comfortable with.
All of
Right.
that I agree with.
Yeah, but so how do we sell this to Republicans? And selling it as a moral crusade is, I believe, is part of the answer. I could very well be wrong, but
Well,
that is the
it may
intention
be.
behind it. That is the
It may
intention,
be,
part of the
and I'm
intention.
not saying you're wrong. I just don't see that how that ties to fasting.
Well, the fast, so the fast is a fast of moral pressure. The fast is saying, look, we are
I
willing.
already
this is-
meditate 3 hours a day. That's my moral pressure.
And so this is one of Martin Luther King's, his 6 principles of nonviolence is unearned suffering is redemptive. And so
Yeah.
you can see this as, this is unearned suffering, right? That I'm not giving up food I'm giving up food to try and inspire you. I'm willing to suffer to try and influence and influence you. So it's unearned suffering to try and change them.
Okay, it doesn't inspire me.
No, suffering doesn't inspire me whatsoever. I'm here to enjoy my life. You gotta
But if it
figure.
inspires some people, fine, but I think it will also keep other people away. If they feel like they're required to do it, it'll keep them away.
However,
Well, was it,
I think-
fasting was
go ahead, Eddie.
I think fasting was a big part of the culture in India. If you read like Gandhi's biographies, like his mom would, like every now and then, his mom would just say, you know what, today I'm not going to eat anything. I'm going to fast today. And personally, I kind of like the idea of fasting. And there's sort of like, I don't know, to me, like it's sort of like a practice of leading yourself, that your animal brain is going to be telling you constantly that you need to eat something. And when you don't eat something, you're practicing overcoming that. Personally, I like it. I think it's extremely ingrained, like it is as common in India as maybe in the US maybe 50 years ago, saying I'll pray for you or something.
I mean, in
just
India,
everybody
it's a way of
understands
life.
it. Yeah, it's a way of life, and people
Here,
understand what it means, and it's part of their identity. It's a common thing to do, to express something. I
And
think.
well,
so-
I follow a master from India and I do fast at times, but I don't see myself fasting for this.
And so that's part of the cultural issues in America, that, right, where we're a culture of instant gratification. I want this now, and I want it my way. It's all about me, and that greed. And so being willing to sacrifice for a larger cause, to delay gratification, and practice that once a month with other people. Yeah, that's the part of trying to shift.
I can
American
see,
culture.
okay, I can see that some people will do that. I think others will be put off.
You're
I
absolutely
would
correct.
do it if I really believed
Absolutely
that
right.
I was doing a higher cause. I mean, if I believe, and you've almost got me convinced. So
I think it's like if you held a vigil, and you just said we're holding a vigil, and you say the one word, and then everybody you say that to immediately know exactly what you're doing. They know exactly what it means and why you're doing it, and that's a vigil. If they didn't know what it means, then it would be really complicated to explain that you're like staying up all night, and what does that mean? Like it would be weird. But when it means what it means, and it's a cultural thing. And
Yeah.
when it's part of your culture, then you know, you just get it. That's
Yeah.
what it means. Yeah.
So,
I have never related to that kind of thing. It's very hard for me to relate to.
yeah. Chihuahua, it's also supposed to help anchor this in nonviolence. As you know, as we've seen other protests and things that, you know, get a little off track sometimes. And then, you know, like the George Floyd protests, right? So if there's one that goes crazy, then they paint the whole movement as, you know, riots and anarchy and things like that. And so the fast is a way to keep this political movement anchored in nonviolence. Again, as a moral crusade, make it more appealing to the people on the right.
Okay, Brian, I can give up food. But the
I know you're capable.
but the coffee and the pot, I can't.
Ah!
That-
Ah, the truth comes out.
well, yeah, I mean, that's the resistance. It's like I don't want to go through a day of suffering that way, because I would definitely suffer.
Oh, me either. I have to live with him.
Yeah.
Yeah. Chihuahua, I posted a link to an article that I'd written 6 months ago
Okay.
that I don't know, you might be interested or not. I don't know.
Okay.
But yeah, it goes over some of the larger, takes a more philosophical view of the case.
Okay.
So
Thank
Brian,
you. I got the link.
So,
I thought that if I can call this medicine, I can go without food.
well, so the letter of the fast is no food, just water. It doesn't say anything about smoking.
Okay.
So,
Oh, there you go.
so you have a loophole for that one, but not the coffee.
Not the coffee. Okay. Headache City, buddy. Headache City. You know, when I went for my men's group, I went 3 days without coffee and I had a terrible headache. And that's when I realized that there is a downside to coffee if you don't do it all the time. But if you quit once, it's over unless you start again. But
There are tens of millions, 100 million Americans who are, you know, who are hooked on this constant consumption cycle, right? And so what if we could help people realize their power, that they were capable of stepping back, they were capable of exercising self-control, of delaying gratification? What if we could help them unlock that? And so that is uncomfortable for many people. And I used to feel that way. I know what that is like. But what if we could help them? And so it's easier to do it if other people are doing it, like, right, these like ice bucket challenges and things like that, right? You don't just wake up one morning and be like, I'm going to dump a bucket of ice on me, but you're like, oh, everyone else is doing it and it's for charity, so okay, I can do it too. And so this is the appealing to people, saying, hey, look, we can work together, we can solve these problems, we can bring America together around these solutions, but we've got to sacrifice for it.
Ah, so okay, if you present it that way, you're just doing basically what Eddie was saying that we ought to do with gamification.
Except
Same
appealing to
thing.
the higher common denominator instead of the lower one, right? You guys aren't wrong to be questionable and to question and be skeptical about this. Not at all. And I, you know, maybe this won't work. Maybe this isn't a way to solve America's problems and bring us together. But
what I just
this is
realized
something I've been
is-
looking at for a long, long time. And this is a solution that, to
Well-
me, addresses lots of things all together and moves America in a positive direction. And so,
Well, the last thing that you said about showing people that they have the power to control their desire to eat all the time, you know, that I can see as valuable.
and so you can picture then the fast part of the political process of like sneaking the vegetables onto people's plates. Like, oh, you want all these all these political reforms. You want to end the drug war and get your UBI and everything. Oh, well, you got to do this healthy thing too.
Why don't we instead say you become a vegetarian?
Be better for the
That would
planet.
be better for the planet than all of us fasting one day.
Yeah, I mean, one of my other projects, Chiwa, is a whole series of 30-day challenges, self-improvement challenges. And yes, being vegetarian or vegan for a month is among those.
So
Get people to
I
start
realized
eating
that
vegan.
I realized in this conversation that if you become absolute, either in your idea that it needs to reach to this group of people or your idea that you want to reach to this group of people, you're going to alienate the other group. So,
That's what I'm
yeah, somewhere
concerned
in the
about.
middle of that. Yeah, I mean, it's like, for me personally, I was turned off by both of them. So, I mean, I'd laugh just to cover my
I think
shame.
there are plenty of people who would support the American Union who would be put off by fasting. I'm not put off. I may do it, I may not do it. Either way, it doesn't really matter. But I mean, I'm still in favor of the American Union.
Yeah, well,
But
and so that's why
not everybody will be.
dumbed down and made optional.
Oh,
And
has it been
and-
made up? Is it made optional now?
Yes. That's
Oh,
why
okay.
yeah.
Okay, that's good.
It's still
What's optional?
so the optional part is to write the hashtag vote AU and take a selfie of yourself in front of your polling place to signify that, yes, you are doing something, show that you're doing something in the real world and that you're committed to coming back and voting together on election day. So if you're not willing to sacrifice and give up food for 24 hours to show that your sincerity and commitment, go take a selfie of yourself and post it on
Okay.
social media, make yourself look cool and be the envy of all your friends and make it all about you instead of about other people. But if that's what you want to do,
Yeah,
then
well,
that's the non-fasting
I'll take a
alternative.
selfie by the mailbox because I vote by mail.
You just have to go out by the mailbox.
But that's an interesting
Yeah,
question.
that's what I'm saying. I'll take a,
Yeah, I vote by mail too.
actually what I should do. What I should do is take a picture of my not my ballot, but my filled out, the thing I'm mailing in, the envelope. Yeah, that thing. This is great. We're at over 2 hours.
Yeah.
This is the best I've felt, the most energized I've felt in a meeting so far. So I really like it. And it didn't always go in where I wanted as far as staying out of my bullshit, but I liked it overall. And I want to work. I want to get an app where people can participate and make a game out of writing congressmen and stuff like that. I don't know.
Make a game out of writing congressman?
Just make a game out of make a game out of working to build the union. In other words, all the stuff that I would get credit for if I could fast.
Make it fun, you're saying.
Somewhere between fasting and Eddie. The idea of being
But that's something
and I
you
don't
can,
think you meant that. I don't think you meant it to be ridiculous. I think you meant just to get people's attention by something that's kind of outrageous or whatever. Because that's what gets people's attention for sure.
Yeah, I think the thing about overcoming your addiction to food might play fairly well.
We're quiet, so I think we're
Yeah.
done.
well,
Does anybody want? Go
no,
ahead.
I was just
Brian.
gonna say, I guess to Eddie's goal of proof of concept that he wants to see. And so again, that's why I'm here in North Carolina, where the 13th congressional district is like one of the most toss-upable races in the country. and the
Cool.
US Senate seat. So if we can control these, then we'll have proof of concept for 2024.
Do I get a star if I call them?
I don't know what that means.
It means every time I do something like call the senator, or call their office, or write a letter, or post something on Facebook about their union, or get somebody to sign up, I get a star.
You want to make an American Union bingo card? And
Is
come
that
up with
what it's
different
called?
things, like make a post on Twitter that gets at least 10 retweets. Make a post on Reddit that gets at least 100 upvotes. Get at least 3 people to sign up for the American Union newsletter, donate $5, whatever, I don't know, come up with 24 little things, make bingo cards.
Okay. I don't know what bingo has to do with it. But
Well, you were saying get a
BING.
star, so I guess that was sort of that was where I went
A
with that.
star, he said.
Yeah. But so like a bingo card, right? Where you got to get 5 in a row, right?
I like getting gold stars myself. The
Yeah.
things that you could do would be the card and get to cross them out if you snub. You get to put stars in there, and if you get a star filled board, then you're a good organizer.
I don't know, but
Anyway, go for it.
I'm played out. I'm gonna go.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
Good night.
Good to
Night,
see you,
Chihuahua.
Chira. Anybody else have anything they want
Well, lucky for me, I get to watch all this again, and that's where I get my juice. I think that we're getting more real as a group. Myself personally, I think I'm getting more real with the group, and I enjoyed it when I got excited. That's what I have to do. Eddie, you got anything to say before we go? A big
No,
yawn.
no, I don't think so. You said, we're not trying to be silly or something. And I think what we're trying to be is subversive a little bit, because people are set up to identify themselves as Democrat or Republican and then vote for the person that the party leaders pick.
Yeah.
And so it's subversive to train people, to have people try voting a different way in terms of saying, this is what I want my politician to do. And if he does this, I'll vote for him. And then, showing that can actually have influence if there's enough people
Yeah,
to say that.
it's the same thing as what Brian's saying, only with the whole big thing, you're saying to do it with something very smaller and
Yeah,
do
exactly.
So as I'm trying to finalize an article laying out the 100-day election cycle plan, maybe you guys can think of some sort of gamification part where people, like, you can, how many gold stars can you get in that 100 days? For
right.
very
the
different
100
tasks
day
or things
challenge.
like that.
Oh God, my computer.
And put it into that framework. I don't know.
You guys got me on fire, so I'm gonna see if my computer will turn off.
Yeah.
It's
Oh.
not turning off.
Are we done recording, TC?
Oh yeah,